The Zarkanian ship materialized above New York with all the subtlety of a sunrise. Golden and sleek, it hung in the morning sky like a second sun, its presence sending ripples through global financial markets before the first word was even exchanged. James Sullivan watched from his office in the Federal Reserve, his eyes fixed on the streams of data flowing across his monitors while the rest of his colleagues crowded the windows. "James, aren't you going to watch?" asked Patricia Morgan, his supervisor, her voice trembling with excitement. "I'm watching something more important," he replied, his fingers dancing across his keyboard. "The markets are speaking to us." The patterns had started 3 months ago. Subtle shifts in commodity prices, microscopic changes in currency exchange rates, the kind of things that most analysts would dismiss as normal market fluctuations. But James wasn't most analysts. He'd spent 20 years developing algorithms to detect market manipulation, and what he was seeing now made every previous case look like amateur hour. The alien delegation made their first public appearance 2 hours later. They called themselves the Zarkanians, and they came bearing gifts: clean energy technology, advanced medical treatments, and promises of cultural exchange. Their ambassador, High Commander Vaksin, spoke perfect English and charmed the UN General Assembly with tales of galactic wonders. But James Sullivan saw different numbers. In his secure office, surrounded by quantum computers and holographic displays, he tracked the invisible threads that were slowly being woven through Earth's economy. The Zarkanians weren't just offering technology. They were building a web of financial dependence so subtle that even most experts missed it. "Director Henderson," James spoke into his secure line, connecting to the head of the Financial Intelligence Unit. "I need to show you something." The meeting room was cold and sterile, deliberately kept free of smart devices and monitoring equipment. James stood before a group of the world's top financial security experts, his presentation deliberately low-tech, just paper and markers. "They're playing a long game," he explained, drawing complex financial flows on the whiteboard. "Every piece of technology they've given us comes with hidden strings. Not legal ones. They're too smart for that. Financial ones. Each implementation creates subtle dependencies that they can exploit." "To what end?" Director Henderson asked, her gray eyes sharp beneath silver hair. "Control," James replied simply. "They're trying to turn Earth into an economic vassal state without firing a single shot." The evidence was irrefutable. The pattern recognition algorithms James had developed showed how each seemingly beneficial trade agreement and technological gift came with carefully crafted economic consequences. The Zarkanians were masters of financial warfare, having presumably perfected their techniques across countless worlds. But they had made one crucial mistake. They assumed humans wouldn't notice. The first confrontation happened during a routine trade negotiation. James sat in the back of the room while High Commander Vaksin presented yet another mutually beneficial proposal. This time, it was about implementing their advanced AI systems in Earth's financial networks. "Commander," James spoke up, interrupting the alien's smooth presentation, "could you explain why your previous technology implementations have resulted in a 0.03% shift in global rare earth element pricing exactly 3 days after each integration?" The room fell silent. Vaksin's silver skin flickered slightly. What James had learned was their species' equivalent of a surprised blink. "I'm afraid I don't follow," the alien said smoothly. "Markets naturally fluctuate." James walked to the front of the room, pulling up his carefully prepared data. "Natural fluctuations don't follow fractal patterns that precisely match your empire's trading algorithms, Commander. We've been watching and learning." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Vaksin's assistants exchanged glances with their multiple eyes, their confidence wavering for the first time since their arrival. "Mr. Sullivan," Vaksin said, their voice carrying a new edge, "these are serious accusations. Perhaps you don't fully understand the complexities of interstellar economics." James smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Perhaps you don't fully understand humans, Commander. We've been manipulating markets and detecting market manipulation since before we had electricity. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? The confrontation made headlines worldwide. Earth analyst challenges alien economic policy. What the headlines didn't show was the emergency meeting that followed in a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. They'll retaliate, James told the assembled world leaders. Not militarily. That's not their style. They'll try to crash our markets, create artificial scarcity, force us to accept their help to survive. Can we stop them? The Chinese premier asked. James looked around the room, at the faces of humanity's leaders, all united for perhaps the first time in history by a common threat. No, he said and smiled. We can do better than that. We can beat them at their own game. As James laid out his plan, the Zarkanians orbiting above had no idea that their greatest miscalculation wasn't in underestimating human intelligence or technology. It was in underestimating human stubbornness. They thought they were dealing with a simple, fractured species that could be easily manipulated through their own greed. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. In his office that night, James looked out at the Zarkanian ship still gleaming in the sky. His computer pinged with a message from Patricia. Operation Mastiff is ready to launch. James sent back a single word. Begin. The first shot in this war wouldn't be fired from a gun. It would come from a trading algorithm, designed by humans who had spent centuries perfecting the art of financial warfare. The Zarkanians thought they were the masters of economic manipulation. They were about to learn that humans had turned it into an art form. Operation Mastiff unfolded with the precision of a Swiss watch. While the Zarkanians watched Earth's major financial centers, they missed the thousands of small transactions happening in remote servers across the globe. James Sullivan's team had spent months preparing for this moment, building a shadow network that would make any cryptocurrency engineer proud. Status report. James called out in the underground command center, now dubbed the Vault by its occupants. Raj Patel, his head of digital operations, looked up from his array of screens. The Zarkanians just took the bait. They're moving to counter our apparent vulnerability in the Asian markets. Perfect, James muttered, watching as alien algorithms responded exactly as predicted. Dr. Ivanova. Are you seeing this? Dr. Natasha Ivanova, a quantum computing specialist poached from CERN, nodded without taking her eyes off her displays. Their response patterns are becoming predictable. Arrogant species tend to be creatures of habit. The true genius of Operation Mastiff wasn't in its complexity, but in its simplicity. Instead of trying to beat the Zarkanians at their own game, Earth's financial warriors had created an entirely new one. They were using humanity's greatest strength: chaos. In orbital stations above Earth, Zarkanian analysts were becoming increasingly frustrated. Human markets weren't behaving according to any known economic models. Trades that should have triggered predictable responses instead sparked seemingly random reactions. It was as if the entire species had collectively decided to abandon traditional economic logic. High Commander Vaksin stood before the Zarkanian Economic Council, their silver skin now a dull gray from stress. The humans are difficult to predict. Impossible, you mean, corrected Council Elder Zix. Our models have worked on 17 different civilizations. What makes these humans so different? They're actively choosing to take losses, Vaksin explained, displaying holographic charts that showed increasingly erratic market behaviors. They're sacrificing short-term gains for no apparent strategic benefit. It defies all rational economic theory. What the Zarkanians couldn't understand was that humanity had learned long ago that sometimes the best way to win was to change the rules of the game entirely. While alien analysts searched for patterns in major stock exchanges, they missed the real action happening in thousands of small, seemingly unconnected transactions. Back in the vault, James watched as Phase 2 began. Ms. Rodriguez, how are our social media operations going? Isabella Rodriguez, a former intelligence operative specializing in mass psychology, grinned. Trending exactly as planned. The memes about stonks and diamond hands are spreading faster than the Zarkanians can analyze them. They're still trying to figure out what HODL means. The beauty of human irrationality was that it became a weapon in itself. Every time the Zarkanians thought they'd identified a pattern, humans would shift their behavior entirely. Flash mobs of retail investors would suddenly pile into random stocks. Major corporations would make seemingly illogical business decisions. Traditional market indicators became meaningless. They're trying to adapt, Raj reported, pointing to new patterns emerging in the alien trading algorithms. But they're still thinking like machines, looking for logic where there isn't any. James nodded, remembering an old quote about the market remaining irrational longer than you can remain solvent. Let's show them Phase 3. Phase 3 was humanity's masterstroke. While the Zarkanians had been distracted by the chaos in traditional markets, Earth's governments had been quietly building something unprecedented. A unified human economic network, completely independent of alien influence. Dr. Ivanova's quantum encryption systems ensured that the Zarkanians couldn't penetrate the new network. Isabella's social media campaigns had prepared the public for the transition, and Raj's distributed systems made it impossible to shut down. "Sir," Patricia Morgan interrupted, rushing into the vault. "The Zarkanian Council is requesting an emergency meeting. They sound desperate." James allowed himself a small smile. "Are they now? Well, we shouldn't keep them waiting." The meeting room in the UN headquarters was tense. The Zarkanian delegation, usually so composed, showed visible signs of stress. Their silver skin had lost its luster, and their multiple eyes darted nervously around the room. "This economic chaos must stop," Vaksin demanded. "You're destabilizing not just your markets, but interstellar trade as well." James leaned back in his chair, projecting calm. "Chaos. We prefer to call it innovation. Humans have a long history of turning apparent disorder into opportunity." "But your own economies are suffering," Vaksin protested. "Are they?" James pulled up a holographic display showing the new human economic network. "Or are we simply changing the game?" The aliens stared at the display, their expressions shifting from confusion to something approaching fear as they realized the full scope of what humanity had built. While they had been trying to control Earth's traditional markets, humans had created an entirely new economic system that the Zarkanians couldn't manipulate or even fully understand. "You have a choice," James continued. "You can either recognize Earth's economic sovereignty and engage in genuine fair trade, or, Vaksin asked, their voice barely a whisper, "or we continue demonstrating just how creative humans can be when we're pushed too far. I hear there's a new trend called meme stocks that's particularly difficult to predict." As the Zarkanian delegation hurriedly consulted among themselves, James received a message from the vault. Phase 4 was ready if needed. He hoped it wouldn't be necessary. But then again, humanity had learned to always be prepared for the worst. The economic war was far from over, but for the first time, the Zarkanians were beginning to understand that they had severely underestimated their opponents. Humans weren't just another species to be manipulated. They were becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. The day Earth revealed its hidden arsenal began like any other, with the Zarkanian ships still hovering in low orbit, their golden hulls reflecting the morning sun. But deep beneath the surface, in facilities scattered across every continent, humanity was ready to unveil the fruits of its secret labors. Admiral Kiyoshi Tanaka stood in the control center of what appeared to be an ordinary weather monitoring station in the Pacific. "Status of Project Prometheus?" he asked, his calm voice masking decades of preparation for this moment. "All systems synchronized," responded Dr. Olivia West, the quantum mechanics prodigy who had helped develop the technology they were about to reveal. "The network is ready, Admiral. Every station is reporting green." What the Zarkanians had failed to notice, in their focus on economic warfare, was that humans had been quietly building something unprecedented. While alien observers watched for traditional military preparations, weapons, ships, armies. Humanity had developed something far more subtle and far more powerful. In the vault, James Sullivan received the confirmation he'd been waiting for. "Tell Admiral Tanaka he has authorization to proceed," he instructed Patricia, "and get me a direct line to High Commander Vaksin." It's time they learned about humanity's other talents. The first indication that something was different came when every Zarkanian communication system simultaneously experienced what they would later call impossible interference. Their quantum-encrypted channels, supposedly unbreakable, began speaking in human voices. "This is a demonstration." Admiral Tanaka's voice echoed through every Zarkanian ship and facility, speaking perfect Zarkanian. "What you are experiencing is not a malfunction. It is not a trick. It is humanity showing you what we can do when we work together." In orbit, Zarkanian technicians frantically tried to restore control of their systems. But humans had spent years studying their technology, finding weaknesses the aliens never imagined could exist. Dr. West's quantum entanglement network didn't just bypass Zarkanian encryption, it rendered it completely irrelevant. "Impossible," High Commander Vaksin whispered, watching as human code rewrote their supposedly secure systems in real time. "Their technology was primitive. We verified it ourselves." "Did you?" James's voice came through next, calm and almost amused. "Or did you see what we wanted you to see? Humans have a long history of keeping our true capabilities hidden until they're needed." The demonstration continued. Across the globe, hidden facilities activated technology that the Zarkanians had believed was centuries beyond human development. Quantum shields flickered into existence around major cities. Advanced AI systems, far more sophisticated than anything the aliens had offered Earth, emerged from their dormant state. But the true revelation wasn't the technology itself. It was how humanity had developed it. Every piece, every system, had been created through global cooperation on a scale unprecedented in human history. The very threat the Zarkanians posed had accomplished something remarkable. It had united humanity. "You should understand something about humans," Admiral Tanaka explained to the increasingly panicked alien leaders. "We don't just adapt to threats. We transform ourselves to overcome them. Every time you pushed us, we didn't just resist. We evolved." Dr. West's team activated the final phase of the demonstration. Around Earth, a network of quantum entanglement nodes created what the Zarkanians had long believed impossible, a planetary defense system that operated outside normal spacetime. Their weapons couldn't target it. Their sensors couldn't track it. It simply existed in a way their science hadn't thought possible. "How?" Vaksin demanded during the emergency conference that followed. "How did you develop all this without us detecting it?" James smiled that same calm smile that had become the stuff of nightmares for Zarkanian analysts. "We learned from history. Every time humanity faced a superior force, we didn't just fight back. We revolutionized our entire way of thinking. The Zarkanian Empire isn't the first entity to underestimate humans, though you might be the last." In the vault, the team watched as their years of preparation finally paid off. Reg distributed computing networks, Dr. Ivanova's quantum algorithms, Isabella's carefully crafted deception campaigns. Each piece had been essential, and each had been hidden in plain sight. "They're requesting a full diplomatic review of all Earth-Zarkanian relations," Patricia reported, trying to hide her grin. "Apparently, they're concerned they may have misunderstood some fundamental aspects of human civilization." "I imagine they have," James replied, looking at the holographic display showing Earth's newly revealed defensive capabilities. "The question is, have they misunderstood enough to make the right decision, or do we need to demonstrate more of humanity's hidden talents?" The Zarkanian Empire, for the first time in its long history, found itself facing a species that had not only resisted their manipulation, but had used it as motivation to achieve things the aliens had thought impossible. As their leaders debated their next move, one thing became increasingly clear. Humanity was not the simple, developing civilization they had believed it to be. They were something else entirely. Something new, something that made even the ancient Zarkanian Empire question everything. They thought they knew about the evolution of intelligent species, and Earth was just getting started. Turning point. The Zarkanian High Council chamber had never seen such chaos. Reports flooded in from across their empire as other subjugated species, inspired by Earth's resistance, began questioning their own economic agreements. High Commander Vaksin faced the harsh reality that their entire system of control was unraveling. The humans have done more than just resist us, Council Elder Zix declared, their multiple eyes reflecting the emergency displays. They've created a template for revolution. In the vault, James Sullivan reviewed the latest intelligence. The quantum network had given Earth unprecedented access to Zarkanian communications, revealing the true extent of their empire and its vulnerabilities. They're trying to isolate us, Raj reported, tracking alien fleet movements. Cut Earth off from potential allies. James nodded, unsurprised. And how's that working out for them? Dr. West smiled as she pulled up a new display. About as well as their economic warfare. Our quantum communication network has already made contact with 17 other species. Turns out we're not the only ones who've been waiting for an opportunity. The real power of humanity's resistance wasn't just in its technology or strategy. It was in the hope it gave others. Species that had lived under Zarkanian economic control for centuries saw what Earth had accomplished and began their own quiet rebellions. Admiral Tanaka's voice came through the secure channel. The Centaurian Federation is requesting formal alliance talks. The Proxima colonies want to adopt our economic independence protocols. Even the Silicon consciousness is expressing interest in human irrationality algorithms. The Zarkanians had inadvertently created exactly what they feared most: a united opposition. Their attempt to subjugate Earth had instead given the galaxy a blueprint for freedom. When the Zarkanian Empire launched what they thought would be a decisive strike against Earth, they discovered another human trait they hadn't counted on: preparation for the worst-case scenario. The alien fleet emerged from hyperspace to find not a vulnerable planet, but a fully prepared human defense network. Every strategy they had developed was countered before it began. Every advantage they thought they had was turned against them. Perhaps, James suggested to a stunned Vaksin during the ceasefire negotiations, it's time to consider a different approach to interstellar relations. The New Order. 1 year after what became known as the Terra Revelation, the galaxy was a very different place. The Zarkanian Empire hadn't fallen. Humans understood that power vacuums often led to worse outcomes, but it had been transformed. In the newly established Galactic Council chamber, representatives from dozens of species gathered to sign the Terran Accords. The agreement established new principles for interstellar trade and cooperation, with built-in protections against economic manipulation. James Sullivan, now Earth's first galactic economic advisor, stood before the assembled delegates. The future we're building isn't about dominance, he explained. It's about genuine cooperation. Humanity's gift to the galaxy isn't just our technology or our economic models. It's our experience in turning adversity into opportunity. The Zarkanians, under new leadership after Vaksin's resignation, had embraced reform with surprising enthusiasm. They discovered that genuine trade partnerships were more profitable than manipulation, and their expertise in interstellar commerce made them valuable allies when not focused on exploitation. Dr. West's quantum network had evolved into an interstellar communication system that allowed species to trade and interact without fear of manipulation. Admiral Tanaka's defense innovations had been adapted into a mutual protection framework. Even Isabella's social media strategies have found unexpected applications in fostering interspecies cultural exchange. The humans have taught us something profound. The new Zarkanian ambassador admitted during the first anniversary celebrations. True power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from helping them grow stronger together. In the vault, now transformed into Earth's Interstellar Coordination Center, James looked at his original team. Did you ever think, when we first spotted those market anomalies, that we'd end up here? Honestly, Raj laughed. I was just hoping we'd keep our planet's economy intact. Reshipping galactic civilization was a bit beyond my initial expectations. Patricia, now Director of Interspecies Relations, smiled. That's humanity for you. We never just solve a problem. We revolutionize entire systems while we're at it. The stars visible from Earth's night sky now held new meaning. They weren't just distant lights. They were friends, allies, and partners in a new galactic order. An order built not on domination or control, but on the very human principles of resilience, innovation, and the stubborn refusal to accept limitations. And somewhere in that vast expanse of space, other species were learning an important lesson. Never underestimate a civilization that turned its own chaos into strength, its defiance into art, and its resistance into revolution. The universe had trembled when humanity's patience ended. But what emerged from that moment wasn't destruction. It was transformation. A new way of thinking about civilization, cooperation, and the true meaning of power. As James looked out at the night sky, now dotted with the lights of visiting alien ships, he remembered something his grandfather used to say. The best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting better. Humanity had done exactly that. And in doing so, they hadn't just saved themselves. They had changed the galaxy forever. The end.